Good morning, baby. Good morning. How we doing, folks? Doug Rice. Get up. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. I've been up 4 hours. God's sake, folks. Sleep in when you're dead. You're woke now. Hey, how we doing, folks? Welcome to the Doug Rice Show, 8 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, straight up 8. And it's Tuesday. It is the 12th of December 2023. Thank you so much for listening to me. Kill the music. Oh, I like that. Oh, I like that auto stop. All right, folks, how we doing? This is the Doug Rice Show. How are you? Let's get it off to a good start. Like, subscribe, share. About the notification bell, I don't care. But do hit those buttons that help my algorithms. I don't know how they help the algorithms, but they do. All right, folks, how we doing this morning? I got something. I like smart information. But I also question why they do certain things that they do certain things. And this interests me. I want to know why this exists. I do indeed. What's going on here, folks? What is this? The status of Black women in and amongst these United Snakes. Wow, what they so interested for? Let me give you the whole thing. Let me let you take at the whole thing. This is a document, one of many that I provide upon request or upon donation, depending on how you wish to proceed. And this particular document caught my eye because it seems to have filled their need. The status of Black women in the United States. First thing I want to know is why. Nah, forget all the we care about you, we are the world, kumbaya bullshit. I don't buy that. I don't. Some things are done in plain sight. And if you read the description of this particular live, juxtapose the hundreds of thousands of Black women that go missing every single year, and in the face of that, these types of reports are put together, created. And we're going to look into what this report says. Let me tell you something, folks. This is interesting. Now, if you are a Negro woman in this country, if you are a Black woman, and I always defer to the term Negro, if you are a Negro woman in this country, you'll probably want to know why they're looking at you so closely. I don't know if it's a tactic of divide and conquer the status of Black women in the United States, but we're going to find this out. The information imparted is extremely good. So let's do this. Let's get into it, shall we? All right. First things first, this status of women in the United States, now status of Black women in the United States, prepared by the Institute for Women's Policy Research, National Domestic Workers Alliance. Now, I don't know the bona fides of these organizations. I don't. I don't know the policies, the politics, the folks behind the scenes, the folks that pull the strings. Remember that all of these organizations are made up of individuals, and all of these individuals have individual opinions. And all of these individual opinions do not necessarily jibe with Negro interests. So please, let's not just take everything at face value. We need to examine closely everything that they report regarding and associate with Negroes. We need to know why. They want to know why. All right, so let's check this out. About this report, I hope everybody's enjoying themselves. Good morning, folks. It's Doug Rice. Wake up. It's a morning show. That means I talk loud and I'm abrasive. All right, anyway, about this report. First things first, let's take a look at the board of directors. Board of directors, I like that. Loretta, Leslie, Catherine, Sylphiel, Martha, Hillary, Beth, Helen, Kian, Esmeralda, Bill, Kristen, Elizabeth, Marcy, Tahisha, what's up, girl? Shelia, and Marcia. All of these folks are the board of directors. Here we go. The status of Black women in the United States builds on IWPR's long-standing report series, The Status of Women in the States, which since 1996 has provided data on women nationally and for all 50 states and the District of Columbia. The status of Black women in the United States seeks to address the gap in research on Black women's well-being to provide data that can inform policy and programmatic changes to benefit Black women and their families. Well, I will search far and wide for the status of Black men in the United States. I dare say we will not find that report. And if the report is written, I can imagine the contents within the report and truly care not to hear them. All right, so the report was produced in collaboration with the National Domestic Workers Alliance, work to amplify the historical and current contributions of Black domestic workers to the broader domestic worker movement. I did not know there was a domestic worker movement. I had no idea. The status of Black women in the United States analyzes data disaggregated. That's interesting. Disaggregated. I hate that, by gender and across 6 topical areas: political participation, employment and earnings, work and family, poverty and opportunity, health and well-being, and violence and safety. That's 12 areas. Please stop insulting my intelligence. In addition, the report includes basic demographic data for each state and a set of policy recommendations. Now, here is where we get into the weeds. Very interesting. I'm wondering how this might satisfy their needs. Let me tell you something about policy recommendations. Policy recommendations have to jibe and coincide, parallel, and meet eye to eye with the needs of those who may suppose not to have the interest of Negroes. So I question usually policy recommendations. It was funded by the National Domestic Workers Alliance with additional funding provided by the Novo Foundation and the Ford Foundation. Now we know the Ford Foundation. Well, we don't have to know the Ford Foundation. Let's see about the Institute for Women's Policy Research. The Institute for Women's Policy Research conducts and communicates research to inspire public dialogue, shape policy, and improve the lives and opportunities of women of diverse backgrounds. Stop! Here's the thing. All of this started as the civil rights bowel movement of the 60s was beginning to take shape. I'm not going to say take hold, because the bowel movement never took hold. But as the civil rights movement took shape, what you found were white women in the ears of Black women throughout the country to talk about the rights that they needed amongst themselves. Don't play games with me, folks. And this is simply an extension of that movement, this kind of research, this policy research that they say is for the good of women, but keeping, in my opinion, divided Black women from Black men. I think this is a tool, a maneuver. I question it simply because of its timing. Do you understand? Listen carefully, maybe you'll get it. So before the women's movement, Black women weren't included. I don't know where y'all coming from. What you think? White women reached down to Black women and talked about all they need to rise above as they suffer through men and their oppression. I mean, I don't remember that happening up until the 60s. I'll say that openly and without a single bit of shame, because that's just exactly the game. If you remember, the movement, the suffrage movement, really wasn't inclusive of Negroes. So please don't now tell me that you're so concerned about Black female life. As you snatch Black women from the streets of America at clips that define imagination, you research their needs in hopes to accomplish what exactly? I really don't know. If you've been doing this since 1996, let me tell you, in 2020, 100,000 Black women went missing in this goddamned country. So if you're concerned about the safety of women, to hell with your report, talk to your white men. What? I'm just getting started this morning. All right, so IWPR's work is supported by foundation grants, government grants and contracts, donations from individuals, and contributions from organizations and corporations. IWPR is a 501c3 tax-exempt organization that also works in affiliation with the Women's Study in Public Policy and Public Administration programs at the George Washington University. And let me say this again, this is pretty simple and plain. Quite frankly, we don't need you in the status of Black women's business. That's just what it is. Look, when you talk about Black women, stop the subterfuge. You're talking about Negro females. And the status of Negro females in the United States, in this country, is none of your goddamn business. We're leaving. Now, you take that as you like it, but you see their interests are what most interest me. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Maybe you'll then see. So this is the National Domestic Workers Alliance, Novo Foundation, Ford Foundation. Please, anyone with half a brain, look up the Ford Foundation and you'll know what I'm saying. Here are the preparers of this document, and I take no offense toward their existence or what they've done. It's the strings that are being pulled above them. That's really where I'm focused. So the status of Black women in the United States, I don't understand, maybe it's just because I'm a man, a Black man, and that a Negro male, but I don't look at this as something positive. I don't like the singularity of the status of Black women in the United States. It says something to me. It really does. To me, it beckons a division amongst us as Black men and Black women, as Negro men and Negro women. And again, I'll look for the status of Black men in the United States, and I dare say you won't find it. But let's see what they're talking about, because this is important. Now I'm going to jump ahead a little bit past the forward and the acknowledgments. I want to go to just some of the contents. Now let's talk about this. So we're going to probably cover why the status, about the report, key findings about the data. We're going to cover that area. That's what we're going to cover, the introduction more likely, or somewhere along those lines. So here's what they're focused on, and you tell me what's on their minds, okay? Employment and earnings. They have key findings, their introduction, labor force participation. Now let's remind ourselves the way Black women are treated in the labor force by white males, and I'll say it, Black males as well. Black women's earnings. Oh, the earnings of Black women are, I would say, juxtaposed to white women, are more likely lower in all respects across the board. Gender wage gap by race, ethnicity. We don't have to even read that. The union advantage, unemployment, occupational segregation, focus on domestic workers, managerial and professional occupations, and their conclusion. So they focus on employment and earnings. Now they're also talking about their political participation. Isn't it? Now, who would use this information, I wonder? So they go to key findings, introduction. So here they're talking about Black women's voting activity, their registration, their turnout, the impact of their identification laws on Black women, Black women in elected office, and their conclusions. Now, again, I read this with only the intent of extracting the information and giving you a narrative on it. But there are others who have ill intent that would read this to give sound foundation for what they intend to do next to the Negro nation. See, there's always a double-edged sword to information, always. So they go Black women in elected office, and of course they come to their conclusions. Moving on to work and family. All right, so parents, key findings, introduction, parents, labor force, mothers as breadwinners. Black women as caregivers and caregiving as work. Child care. When they focus on care, work, elder independent care, work, family supports in their conclusion. Work, family, that's 3. 4, poverty and opportunity. Do you understand what I'm trying to point out to you? It's interesting that they've delved so deep into all of the aspects of the life of Black women and in this country. And they pointed out, I'm certain, a lot of things that need to be pointed out. But interesting, don't really see too much, I don't know, about Black men and how Black women, homicide by men, that's good. Well, let me see here. Poverty and opportunity. Natural key findings intro. Access to healthcare insurance. Well, we already know the disparities between the healthcare insurance industry and Black people in general. And for Black women maternally, their healthcare is also suffering beyond reason. They write up about this. Education, Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, Black women, business owners, poverty in the social safety net, focusing on reparations. Focus on reparations. Interesting. Black women, business owners, social security safety net. Moving on. Violence and safety. Key findings. Introduction. Intimate partner violence. No, I'm not crazy. I see what this is. Okay. Sexual violence, stalking, homicide by men, Black women in the criminal justice system, racial profiling, and police brutality. Focus on LGBTQ women. The agenda now seems to rise. See, this isn't about Black women as much as it is about keeping Black women separate from Black men, maintaining that separation and the strength of that independence. Because if we come together as a couple in a group, a coupled group, it's interesting. I'll look for Black men, the report. Here we go. Health and well-being. Introduction, chronic disease, sexual reproduction health, mental health, limitation on women activity, disabled women, obesity, health weight, all of those findings, reports, stats pushed by white attitude. What are they? I mean, are they looking at a mirror? They're almost looking at the reflection of their activity. This isn't them doing it to themselves. Recommendations. So here are the recommendations. Let's see what their recommendations. Strengthening Black women in the political participation, supporting employment, increasing earning for Black women, creating policy infrastructure support, expanding opportunities, reducing poverty among Black women, health, improving Black women's health, reducing violence of Black women. Any recommendations about Black women clinging to Black men, creating strong Black nuclear families with strong nuclear-minded Black men? I don't see those recommendations. What I see is a separation. What I see is the severance and division. I see them inviting Black women to be as independent of anything Black male as possible and doing it all by yourself, with yourself, for yourself. No mention at all of perhaps clinging to the men who are made for you. Do you understand the status of Black women in this country? Is none of their goddamn business, because they're not talking about the right things. I believe they're missing at least one good point. Let's continue. So they got maps, they got figures, they got more figures. Shit, they got tables. They got appendix tables. They got a lot. They want Black women to know that they are Black women for show. Let's see. All right, so a lot of imagery, cool. So let's check this out. This is the introduction. They're going to answer the question, why the status of Black women in the United States? Why? Black women make essential contributions to the productivity, health, and success of the nation. Yes, of the Negro nation, not your nation. See, this is the trick of mind that I find in these types of publications. For many years, Black women have supported their families and served as leaders in their communities and society at large. Yes, they have. Have they not? But not to the betterment of the country, because the country does not give a damn about Black women. I need perhaps this to be focused in your mind. When Black women do all of these things, they do this for their families. They don't do this to further the United States of America. I don't think that that's a point that should be missed, but watch them take all that they do and apply it to the community as large, which is, appropriately, of course, appropriately so, but I just find it to be, a little bit disingenuous. All right, anyway, for many years, Black women have supported their families and served as leaders of the communities, yes. Black women played an integral role in the fight to desegregate public Black schools in the 1950s and 1960s. Yes, they did, and we see how that's working out. Black women have been used by this country to divide and conquer the Black family. This is going to more likely give you an insight and probably wrap it in nice kid gloves and talk to you about how Black women need to seriously rise above all that oppresses them. And here's the issue I'm finding. Without talking about Black men, that is the real message here. I'm just laying it out as I see it, as a Black man that reads this, with no mention at all of Black men except the negative and how they need to escape violence. All Black men are not violent. All Black women do not do what they do for the betterment of the country, but for their community and their people. And the quicker we are out of this mess so that we can create the nuclear Black family apart from this idiocy, the better for us all. All right, I'll continue. Fine. And if you don't agree, I'm not apologetic. I am absolutely entitled to understand how this is being promoted in this land. This is not for us. This is for them. Today, let me go up here. The passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and multiple movements to ensure equal treatment of Black and brown women and men. And it hasn't worked. Today, Black women are one of the most active groups of voters in the country. Okay. And Black women and girls are creating greater opportunities for their communities through their leadership in social movements such as Black Lives Matter. That went bad. Say Her Name. Very good. The National Domestic Workers Movement for Fair Labor Protections and Dignified Working Conditions. Yet, beginning with the stark exploitation of slavery in the 17th century, Black women's contribution to the United States society and the economy have been undervalued and undercompensated. Black women, along with multiracial women, have the highest labor force participating rate in the nation among women. But all educational levels, Black women are concentrated in lower paying jobs than most other groups of workers. Do you understand the dichotomy, the disingenuousness of this entire prepared report? They talk about the contributions of Black women while at the same breath telling you how they are ill-treated, mistreated, and paid less. So it's like a backhanded compliment. But let me not digress. Okay. All right. But at all education levels, Black women are concentrated in lower paying jobs than most other groups of workers. When working full-time year-round, Black women earn just 64 cents to every dollar earned by comparable white men. In addition, Black women are overrepresented, oh God, I hate that, in the service sector, doing crucial work to care for children, the elderly, and individuals with disabilities while earning low wages and receiving few benefits. You know, we used to take care of your goddamn children too, right? You remember that? So basically, you've kept Black women in the same employment, paying them less than you would white women, 64% for every dollar. Overrepresented in the service sector, doing crucial work to care for children. Okay. Black women also experience high poverty rates as well as rates of victimization from violence. Yeah? From who? Say it. If you're not going to say it. Don't just stop. Here's the thing. If you don't understand what they're doing here. No, this wasn't a positive expose on this particular document. This was an expose on all they're trying not to say. In the current political and economic context, which includes the spread of anti-union legislation and voter identification laws that can make it more difficult for people of color and low-income individuals to vote, the refusal of states to fully implement the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act and the disproportionate incarceration of Black women, it is essential to elevate Black women's voices and experiences. The status of Black women in the United States aims to provide critical data to identify the barriers that Black women face and suggest community investments, programs, public policies that can lead to positive changes for Black women and their families. I agree with all of this. If it weren't for the hidden sinister message they're really trying to convey, you can do it without Black men. That is what this is about. And throwing in that LGBTQ association with this document tells you what this is about: the destruction of the Black family, not the elevation of the Black woman. See, because in this white-minded offer, and I'll say it openly, in this aberration of an offer to lift Black women, it is a lift apart and away from Black men. That is what this is, an offering of independence and extension of the white woman's movement of the 60s, which fractured the bowel movement that they call the Civil Rights Movement. And still they continue. I'm waiting for the document that tells Black women to cling to Black men, support Black men, be all that you can be as Black women in the confluence that needs to be created within the Black society. It can only be done outside of this one. This isn't a call to anything but disunity. This is a call to independence and a fracture of unity within the Negro community. That's the hidden thing. And again, folks, if you don't believe me, check out what the Ford Foundation stands for before you get up in your feelings about what I'm saying about this document. I'm not attacking all that Negro women should and can be. What I'm simply pointing out is they are approaching this from a rather independent and apart point of view. And it's not the fault of Black women. This is a Eurocentric ideology. This is what has destroyed civilizations in the past. If you look at the Roman civilization and how it was destroyed, it was the upsurgence and continued impact of this equality and confusion that overtook Rome, and it imploded, as this country is doing. So don't read into what they offer as good as actually good. It could also be as nefarious as hell. And this is exactly that, as far as I can tell. All right, so about the report. In the context of widespread economic inequality, the systematic disenfranchisement of Black communities, thank you, and blatant violence against and over-incarceration of Black and brown. What the fuck is brown? What is this? What is this about? See the diffusement? What they've done is they've deconstructed the movement. Anyway, and blatant violence against and over-incarceration of Black, brown women, men, and children. Black women are demanding social and economic change with full and equal access to our social institutions and political power. So Black men are not doing that. Is that by inference? Are you saying that Black women are demanding, but Black men, we're just sitting around waiting for something to happen? Is that what's happening? See, this is what this is. I'm going to tell you something. Any Black woman that would read this is not going to have, this is all about doing it yourself, by yourself. Screw Black men. You don't need them. You can do this. Empower yourself apart from the unity that white society expects to enjoy and promote. Oh yeah. Yeah, they're not going to sit here and whine and complain. They're going to talk about getting unified with their men, and look at what they're doing again and again. So don't think this is something about Black women. This is all about whiteness. I'll just say it like that. That's what this is about. This is about a white ideology. Because the report on black women in the United States should simply read, black women in the United States should be with black men in the United States and prepare to leave the United States, for goodness damn sakes. All right, anyway, research on and by black women has brought the challenges and triumphs of black women's lives to the forefront, highlighting where black women's hard work and dedication have resulted in increasing representation in political office or improved educational attainment, and where more needs to be done to lift families from poverty or improve women's working conditions. I'm going to stop and say this. They wouldn't write anything about black men like this. Do you understand that? This is not a report to be written for black men. You cannot write anything like this that attempts to uplift black men apart from white society. Let me tell you. No, they will not. They will not encourage that, but they will encourage the divide. They will. All right, anyway, IWPR's The Status of Black Women in the United States builds on this legacy of expanding what we know about black women's status across states and across issue areas. This report analyzes data for all 50 states and the District of Columbia across 6 topical areas that affect women's lives: political participation, employment and earning, work and family, poverty and opportunity, health and well-being, and violence and safety. Within each of these areas, various indicators of well-being are explored. While the focus of the report is on the status of black women, comparisons between black women and other racial ethnic groups of women and men are presented to contextualize the data. Basic demographic data for each state are also provided. The report concludes with the recommendations to improve the status of black women in the United States, and I will tell you, all those recommendations do not include black men. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Beautiful. Here we go. Key findings. That's what we're going to be going over. Key findings. The status of black women in the United States identifies a number of key findings. Now, all of these key findings are absolutely true. They have merit. All of this, my friends, brothers and sisters, if they were coming from the right motive, I wouldn't have this attitude. If it were the Negro Nation that wrote this for the Negro Nation, and all we need to do to build the Negro Nation under the kingdom of heaven, then I'd have no problem. But what this is doing promotes everything but that. This promotes everything but that. But let's see the key findings. So let's go. Black women vote at comparably high rates and had a higher voting rate than all other groups of men and women during the last 2 presidential elections. Now that's a good stat. That's an absolutely good stat. But what were the ramifications of those elections? What happened? What's going on now? What's the attitude toward black women in positions of power by white males today? I mean, what does Stacey Abrams get as a reward for all of her efforts? What did she get? Not a goddamn thing. That's what she got. Black women are being used to promote the European white ideology that's in this country in most respects. I mean, they are in line with the system. If you're talking about voting, and if they vote at comparably high rates, well, for goodness sakes. What I'd like folks to do is to just check out the status of this current country right now. I want you to see where it's at, the vibration, the frequency this country is emanating. And I want you to include all the findings and stats they have comparatively, and I want you to put together the then compared to the now, and then let's break it down somehow. Black women remain underrepresented at every level of federal and state political office in the United States. That's the status of black women in this country. In 2014, black women composed 6.4% of the United States population, but as of August 2016, held only 3.4% of the seats in the United States Congress, no seats in the U.S. Senate. In state legislatures, black women held just 3.5% of seats. Only 2 black women in the country held a position in statewide executive elected office, all the fault of white society. What are you bragging about your handiwork for? Black men didn't do that. What? This is what I'm saying. They're complaining about their lot in life to the very people that cause it. More than 6 in 10, 62.2% black women are in the workforce, making them one of the 2 racial ethnic groups of women with the highest labor force participation rate among women, and the only group of women with a high labor force participation rate than their male counterparts. They won't even say black men. They won't even say black men. Huh, that's interesting. Black women's median annual earnings, $34,000 for those who work full-time year-round, lag behind most women's and men's earning in the United States. Between 2004 and 2014, black women's real median annual earnings declined by 5%, table 2.2. As of 2014, black women who worked full-time year-round had median annual earnings that were 64.6% of white men's, $53,000. In Louisiana, the state with the largest gap in earnings between black women and white men, black women earned less than half of white men's earnings, 46.3%, all due to white men. So what the hell are you talking about? All due to the decisions of white men with white women behind them cheering them on. What are you talking about? You know where the money's coming? It's coming back to the house in the hands of their white wives. So what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Okay. About 28% of employed black women work in service occupations. The occupational group with the lowest wages. Jobs in this broad occupational group often lack important benefits such as paid 6 days, all by design. Okay. Black families. Oh, that's so close to black men. That's about as close as it get to. Black families depend on black women's earnings. Oh, do they? Okay, 8 out of 10, 80%. Black mothers are breadwinners. This is the most racist dribble I've ever seen in my life. Y'all don't see this? So 8 out of 10 black mothers are breadwinners who are either the sole earner or earning at least 40% of household income. No, they don't have to say a damn thing about black men, do they? They're saying it. They're saying it. And let me say this, folks, that stat, if accurate, which I find a bit out there, I can't imagine if 20% of the men that are out there are the ones that are breadwinners in the household. I find that to be a disingenuous slight. And you know what? What's the stats of white men? Or do they even take those stats? That's what we ask again and again, right? Tell me this, dear. All of this is by design. If that's a fact, that's by white European design. If 8 out of 10 black mothers are breadwinners who are either sole earner or earn at least 40% of the household income, which sounds about right, 40%, that to me seems a bit, I don't know. That's by design. Quality child care, unaffordable for many black women by design. In all but 2 states in the country, the average cost of child care exceeds 20% of black women's median income by design. More findings. While health insurance coverage rates have increased substantially due to the implementation of the 2010 Patient Protection Affordable Care Act, 16.5% of the non-elderly black women in the United States still lack coverage as of 2014. Many of the states that place in the bottom third in the country in terms of black women's health insurance coverage are states in which Medicaid expansion has not been adopted since the implementation of the ACA by design. You see, again, the stats, the findings mean nothing without binding and connecting the folks that need correcting. That's what's up. I see your stats. They're just like that. I see them. All fueled by the white mind. I have no idea what this is about here. So you want black women to free themselves of the horror created by you. You have stats after stats after stats after stat, and you tell them to lean into the melee. Don't even think about black men. They're a part of the problem. Don't even think about that. Don't think about the fact that it's white men that are fueling all of these stats and conclusions that you're coming to. No, don't think about the fact that it's white society that is putting this upon black women while telling you to rise above and away from black men because they can't help you. The only thing that helps you is us telling you what's happening to you without telling you who's doing it to you, and then instructing you not to look to the one individual that was put here for you. No, you don't need that. Do it by yourself. But here's the problem that we've given you. Interesting. Between 2004 and 2014, the share of black women with a bachelor's degree or higher increased by 23.9%, making black women the group of women with the second largest improvement in attaining of higher education during the decade. Really? That's cool. I like that. In 2014, about 22% of black women aged 25 and older had bachelor's degrees or higher. Black women had higher levels of education than black men. Oh, finally, they said the word black men to point out that they have higher educational levels than black men, 17%, but lower educational levels than Asian Pacific Islander men and women of another race or two or more races, and white men and women. So you don't think this is a racist piece of document here? You don't think this is the Ford Foundation at work? So the Ford Foundation, as people don't know, Henry Ford was an anti-Semite. He was a rabid he assisted Hitler in the war. Ford gave him, I think, either fuel or engines, okay? So Ford is a rabid anti-Semite, which means he is a racist to his core. But let me tell you this. Black women are acceptable as long as they glom on to the white woman narrative. I'll say that again. Black women in this country are accepted as long as they attach themselves to the white woman experience. As long as they make it a suffragette against black men and the society as a whole, they won't lean toward black men. They won't do that at all. They'll take the same stance taken that their white counterparts are making. And that's why I dislike the term black, because Negroes don't do that. Woke Negro women don't have these problems. Now, I don't know. I'm sitting on the show looking at what they're doing. What they're doing is they're trying as much as they can the black family to ruin. That's what they want. They don't want the black cohesion, the black nucleus, the black family unit. I'll tell you something, folks. The very photo of a black family to a white face will draw ire. You get a man, a woman, and 3-4 kids together in a happy photo, congregating out and amongst the populace, showing that Negro unity, and it agitates the white spirit. I'll be damned, yes, you'll hear it. They do not like the black family. You can stop that. They love the black woman. They don't give two damns about the black man, but they love the black woman as long as she's doing all she can to be separate and apart, because that's their special art. And that's what this is. That's what we're reading is. The status of black women in the United States is that they maintain separate and apart from black men, from goodness sakes. That's their status. That's their wanted status. All right, so the number of businesses owned by black women increased by 178% between 2002 and 2012, the largest increase among all racial and ethnic groups of women and men. Yes. That's true. In 2012, Black women owned 15.4% of all women-owned businesses in the United States, a larger share than their share of their female population, 12.7%. In the District of Columbia, Mississippi, and Georgia, Black women own more than 40% of all business-owned business. Yet nationwide, businesses owned by Black women had the lowest average sales per firm among all racial and ethnic groups of women and men at $27,753. So there's a front slap and then there's a backhand. What the hell are you doing? All of that, but they had the lowest average sales per firm. I mean, and remember, folks, all of these stats are designed. They are not by chance, okay? Black women experience poverty at higher rates than Black men and women from all other racial ethnic groups except Native American women, again, by design. A quarter of Black women in the United States live in poverty, 24.6% compared with 18.9% of Black men and 10.8% of white women, who have the lowest poverty rate among women. Interesting. So their whole strategy is conquer and divide. Black women's average annual heart disease mortality rate declined by 38.5% between 1999 and 2013, although at 177.7% of 100,000, it remains the highest rate among the largest racial and ethnic groups of women. Black women have the second highest lung cancer mortality rate among the largest racial ethnic groups of women, behind white women, 39.9 per 100,000, while having the highest breast cancer mortality rate among all racial and ethnic groups of women. Well, that's a matter of treatment. That's, again, attitude seeping into treatment. You know, the expectation that Black people, so Black women, can take more pain. That kind of thought process. Anyway, Black women's average incidence of AIDS is 5 times higher than any other racial and ethnic group of women. However, incidence of AIDS among Black women decreased by 45% in 2000, between 2000 and 2013. Okay. Black women experience women experience intimate partner violence at higher rates than women overall. More than 40% of Black women experience physical violence by an intimate partner during their lifetimes, 41.2% compared with 31.5% of all women. Now, by design. Now, they're not going to report to you how many white women have murdered Black women they've been dating. We're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about the LGBTQ community of white women who are dating Black women who are also violent against Black women. You see, what they're not telling you is obviously Black women are the most desired creatures on the planet, with 100,000 going missing in 2020. So everybody is after a Black woman. And so if everybody is after a Black woman, it would stand to reason that Black women would be the most and highest women to be violently brought against. I would say that might be a factor in what we see going on. What do you think? I don't know. But again, maybe and notice that they don't point out in any respect who is abusing the Black women we need to protect. From a young age, Black girls are disciplined at higher rates than all other groups of girls within public schools. Black girls compose 45% of girls suspended from K-12 schools between 2000 and 2012. Yes, the war is on Black women, but you come to Black men and we will take care of our Black women. Negroes. You see, when I talk about Negroes, I'm not really discussing Black people, African Americans, people of color, not those individuals that have leaned and turned into the European ideology of what's right and wrong and good and all this other crap. And when I look at this, we can itemize the blame game to a specific degree. But it's kind of imperative. What they don't want is Black women to be with Black men like me. They don't want Black women to be collectively unified with their Black men, because then they're going to have a problem. Let's continue. Black women of all ages were twice as likely to be imprisoned as white women in 2014. 109 per 100,000 Black women were imprisoned in the state and federal prisons, compared with 53 per 100,000 of white women. Among young women, the disparity is especially pronounced Black women between the ages of 18 and 19 are 4 times as likely to be imprisoned as white women of the same age, 32 per 100,000, compared with 8 per 100,000 by design. What are you doing? So you're talking about what you're doing and you're shaking your head and wagging your fucking finger. So about the data, let's talk about it. The status of Black women in the United States builds on IWPR's long-standing The Status of Women in the States report series, which starts since 1996, provided data on women nationally and for all 50 states in the District of Columbia. This report is meaningless. Do you understand that, folks? The status of Black women in the United States, as reported by the Ford Foundation, is meaningless. Because if they've been reporting since 1996, things have only gotten worse. Our women are only going missing more. The abuse is getting worse. Everything is expanding. But the thing is you're reporting on something that white people are doing. That's why, I mean, the fact you can't just say that it is them doing it is a problem. That's where the onus rests on white people. You can't get yourselves under control. And you expect everyone else to be under control while you lose your goddamned minds collectively. About the data. When developing the project in the mid-1990s, IWPR referred to several sources for guidelines on what to include. The Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action for the UN, Fourth World Conference on Women guided some of IWPI's choices of indicators. This document, the result of an official convocation of delegates from around the world, outlines issues of concern to women's rights, fundamental to women achieving equality and autonomy, and remaining obstacles to women's advancement, really. And as they prepared this years ago, how has the world gone since? It seems to be sliding into chaos and decadence. It's going to be an interesting show to watch what these Europeans put on. And I'm going to tell you something, folks, they can't wait to get it on. They can't wait to get to it, man. Anyway, IWPR also worked with state advisory committees between 96 and 2004 to produce a report for each of the 50 states and the District of Columbia. These committees reviewed their state's report and provided input for improving the project as a whole. The selection of data for this report was informed both by IWPR's previous work on the status of women and by input received from experts in the field. I'm going to continue. This report relies on multiple data sources, including data from federal government agencies and nonprofit organizations. The primary data source is the American Community Survey from the Minnesota Population Center's Integrated Public Use Microdata Series. The ACS is a large annual survey conducted by the United States Census Bureau of a representative sample of the entire resident population in the United States, including both households and group quarter GQ facilities. The ACS has sufficiently large sample sizes to provide data on women disaggregated by race, ethnicity, and age at the state level. For this report, IWPR used 2014 data, the most recent available, and that's about 10 years old now. For most indicators, and combined 3 years of data, 12, 13, and 14, when necessary, to ensure large enough sample sizes to produce reliable estimates. When examining trends at the national level in Black women's status over the last decade, IWPR used 2004 ACS data for comparison. So things have only gotten worse. That's what they're doing. This is why I read this, because in this are keys to their thinking. And most of their thinking is stinking. You understand what this document really is? It's a cry for Black women to remove themselves from the nucleus of the Black family. You can't win. Everything's against you. You need to rise up and be as an individual as you possibly can, far away from the Black man and to yourself, so that we can effectively destroy the Black family. That's what Henry Ford is about, folks. Some of the differences reported amongst the states or between a state and the nation the nation are likely to be statistically significant. That is, they are unlikely to have occurred by chance and probably represent a true difference among states or between a state and the county as a whole. In other cases, the differences are too small to be statistically significant and are likely to have occurred by chance. IWPR did not calculate or report measures of statistical significance. Generally, the larger a difference between two values for any given sample size or distribution, the more likely it is that the difference is statistically significant. Sample sizes differ among the indicators analyzed. So, let me take a break. It's not looking good, huh? It's not looking good. It is not looking good for Black women. And what do they recommend? What do they recommend? They recommend that you ignore all of the facts we're not telling you. You ignore the fact that it is white people doing this to you. It's not Black men that are doing this to you. It's white people in general, and it's white women behind white men that are doing all of the things that we read. Now, instead, we want you to not look toward the man that will, assist in every respect in carrying you from this circumstance. Instead, we want you to be as independently assertive as possible, apart from Negro maleness, which is part of the problem. And we want you to be, as an independent woman, be female. Don't be a Negro. No, that's not how this is going to go. Now let's check this out. I'm going to wrap this up, how the status of women in the reports are used, how this is used. I want you to understand the subterfuge. The status of women in the state's reports has three primary goals: to analyze and disseminate information about women's progress in achieving rights and opportunity. Okay. To identify and measure the remaining barriers to equality, and to provide baseline measures for monitoring women's progress. To what purpose? See, it's used to what purpose? Those same stats can be used to reinforce those same stats. It can show the folks who read the report that what they are doing is working. Again, I encourage all of you to please examine the Ford Foundation. The reports have been used throughout the country to highlight remaining obstacles facing women in the United States and to encourage policy changes designed to improve the status of women of all races and ethnicities. IWPR state and local partners use the reports to educate the public, inform policies and programs, make the case for changes that benefit diverse women, including establishing commissions for women, expanding child care subsidies for low-income women, encouraging women to vote and run for office, strengthening support for women-owned businesses, developing training programs for women to enter non-traditional occupations, and increasing women's access to healthcare, establishing investment priorities, and inspire community efforts to strengthen area economies by increasing participation of women and improving women's status. All of that is wonderful if your motive wasn't so sinister. If where you're coming from wasn't so foul. You know what I'm saying? That would really sound, that's how this works. It's the deceit wrapped in truth. That's what they're good at. That's why I read to you folks, because they read this. And you need to understand the mind of these Europeans, man. This ain't normal. What they're offering ain't normal. What they're offering is actually in direct opposition to what is natural. That's what they're offering here. But this report was produced in partnership with the National Domestic Workers Alliance. I'd like somebody to look that up. To amplify the historic and current contribution of Black domestic workers to the broader domestic worker and movement. Wait a minute, what you trying to say? You mean you want to keep these Black women working in your house? Is this what is that what this is about? You don't let Black men, unless they're butlers, trusted, and eunuchs. This is look, there is a war on Blackness, starting with Black men. And the first casualty they try to cause is the relationship between Black men and Black women. That's the first casualty, the separation. This is a call for that separation. All right, well, that's what I got. I know it wasn't what you expected. You probably thought I was going to be really connected with this report and the status of Black women in the United States, but give me a break, for goodness sakes. The Ford Foundation is no friend to Negroes. All right, and that's just how the way it goes. These guys, they encourage, and let me show you. Oh, there, it's a voting booth. Let me share with you this. Why was this report written? Why did they start writing these reports in '96? To whose benefit does this give? What it does, in my opinion, is they offer this report to women, probably in the places where only women, our Negro women and their women, congregate. And they use this as a separation tool. They absolutely do. I guarantee that they do. They want no part of the Black family. And the status of Black women in the United States is abysmal, for goodness sakes. But the status of the Negro woman is more likely woke and ready to go. And that'll be it, folks. That's the Doug Rice Show. All right, that's it, folks. That's what I got. I hope I haven't said a lot. I hope I haven't said too much to offend. I will not lie, and I do not pretend. I did not care for how they presented that report. I just thought it was disingenuous. All right, thank you so much for being here. Please check out the Doug Rice Show, the PDF store at Doug Rice, theDougRiceShow.com. I provide these kinds of PDFs. This is a pretty big one too, folks. I mean, this was a pretty long PDF. This went into depth. So yeah, 192 pages. We were on page 23. So for those of you that want to read the rest, or maybe have other things that you want to read, later today I will be doing a show that highlights the PDFs that I have. And remember, listen, eat the meat, spit out the bone. If you don't agree with what I say, leave it alone. I just have an opinion, and it's a Black man's opinion. Thank you very much. All right, folks, you guys have a wonderful day. I appreciate you listening to what I say. Cue the music. Can I get the music? Let's see. Can I get it? Get the music, AI. What's he going to give me right now? Yeah, I don't know. Uh-oh. Oh, that's funky. I like that. Thanks so much, folks, showing up to the Doug Rice Show. I don't know how long this is going to last. I've gotten some pretty bad news here in the past, but I'll do this show every day until I cannot, because I am moved to do so. And it's all I've got. All right. Thanks so much. You guys have a wonderful day. Get that goddamn grin off your faces, particularly in public places. Bye-bye.